way they tried to make their own gospel instead of living out the gospel. Then in this chapter, he starts responding to some specific questions. One thing to keep in mind is that at this time, of course, with things like the Rome being where it was, sexual immorality was rampant. So because of that, one of the things that was really going on, even outside of the church, was essentially to abstain from sexual practices for at least a period of time was thought to make you more spiritually vibrant. And so in that, remember, church Christians always competing to be more holy. That was how they were. It wasn't so much about going closer to God; it was more about appearing to be more holy. That was kind of the battle that they went through. So this is addressing specific things that we don't know. We don't have the letter to Paul, but we do know this was in response to that letter. Chapter 7 starts addressing specific things in specific ways, and Paul really expresses his own personality, his own thoughts. And so as we dig into that, kind of keep that in mind, because we kind of dive into what can be a little bit uncomfortable sometimes. Verse 7, let's read the first 5, chapter 7, the first 5 verses. Someone will take off and read that.
Now concerning the things whereat ye wrote unto me, it is good for a man not to touch a woman. Nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. Let the husband render unto the wife due benevolence, and likewise the wife unto the husband. The wife hath not power of her own body, but the husband, and likewise also the husband hath no power of his own body, but the wife. Defraud ye not once one or the other, except it be with consent for a time, that ye may give yourselves to fasting and prayer, and come together again, that Satan tempt you not for your inconsistencies.
Obviously, we're well aware, know that one of the greatest temptations out there, and that many have fell victim to, is that of these types of desires. And so what he's addressing there is that someone has asked him, essentially, should we do without? And he's saying that if you can, sure. But if to meet that desire, if you have a spouse, then they should meet that need. Don't deprive. Don't do without there. That's a part of that love, part of that union, and part of what you are. And if you do that, do it for a short time to give God glory. To give not but to tell everybody, hey, look what I'm doing, look how strong I am spiritually, or any of that stuff. But a time to give glory to God, to pray, to fast. And I think sometimes we forget also that fasting can be more than just doing without food. And I remember the first time that I kind of learned of that. Although fasting obviously is often that type of fasting, and there is a spiritual aspect to that and that practice, but also doing without other things to allow things to fall into priority is also a practice that can definitely be beneficial. But what he said, don't defraud one another, don't deprive one another. Don't put yourselves in the spot for temptation. Meet each other's need. And obviously, this is a very specific one that they're talking about here. And I believe this is in response to a very specific question where they were talking about, going for a while without having that part of the relationship in a way, to be more fruitful for the Lord and to grow closer to Him and allow for Him. But it goes on here a little bit, talks more about this next couple of scriptures there in verses 6 through 8. If somebody wants to read that.
But I speak by permission and not of commandment. For I would that all men were even as I myself, that every man hath his proper gift from God, one after this manner, and another after that. I say therefore to the unmarried and the widows, it is good for them if they abide, even as I. But if they cannot contain, let them marry, for it is better to marry than to burn.
So a couple things there that it's talked about there again is those passions are there. So Paul is going to talk about in this chapter several times. He's a single man. He thinks it's better to be single. And we won't get far ahead of where he's speaking here, but he thinks it's better just to do like him and serve God only, and that be it, and not have a relationship. And he goes into further details about that. That's what he's saying. But if you can't do that, if you fight those desires, you'll hear Paul say at another point in the Word, that he had this one thorn in his side, and he prayed thrice. He prayed 3 times, he still has it. And that he doesn't say what that thorn is, but some say that maybe this might be addressing that a little bit. It's strictly speculation. But so what they're talking about, the reason I put the term passion problems here is we have our human natures, our human needs, our human desires, and if what he's saying is keep those in proper context, and if you think those are going to go unmet or unheeded for the most part, that's not going to work out well. That's going to end in disaster because you're going to follow so many of those passions. And that, obviously, that physical one is definitely one that can be a draw. And Satan will certainly present it. And I think even more maybe now than ever is temptation in that way is readily available. And it's something that many relationships and people struggle with different ways and different ways that Satan takes those passions and uses them for evil. And so what he's saying there is take care of each other. Keep that passion problem down. Don't allow the eyes and the physical nature of drawing to draw you away into something that is not appropriate for you, and then it becomes something that draws you away from God. It's something that can, and the thing I would say about this, I know this is an awkward topic, but I think, unfortunately, this is one that can become a secret sin. I think a secret sin is worse than public sin. Because the secret sin, we're often ashamed of, and I know these things go. We talked about today Daniel praying with his windows open. Even when he knew there was a great chance of him getting thrown in the lion's den for it, he still prayed with his windows open. He wasn't a closet Christian. And I think that often we more judge sin by what's known and unknown by people, when really it ought to be what God knows in me. And what God really knows. Sometimes we get those and we don't really want to deal with them. We don't understand. And because we bury them, we don't deal with God because we know they're wrong. We follow these lusts and those kind of things. People do that. And that's one that gets kind of buried. And then it becomes a wedge between us and God to deal with. And whether it be of the sexual nature or anything else, you're talking about thinking, vision, passions, interests, draws, whatever it is, if those things are in us and keeping us from God any amount. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be an inch further away from God than what I can be today. I want to be closer every day. And I think we constantly have to battle and allow, be like, again, quote Paul, we have to die daily. Every day it's about those urges and those things and those draws, and no matter what that temptation is. But I think in this regard, this is one, although I would also say in this context it's very different. Because now, where these things may be shameful, well, in some cultures, in some places it is, I guess. And in others, like Rome, all this sexual immorality was being celebrated. And I guess I would have to say another powerful nation is kind of heading that direction. But I would say for us, that aren't celebrating and buying into that, we still have to be leery of where our thoughts are going, what our eyes are seeing, and more things can get thrown up in our face that just strolling along, looking at our phone, driving along, whether it be advertised, whatever, things can get thrown up in our face. And so meeting our passions the way that God drew it up, the way that He designed it to be, is the appropriate way, as opposed to the other way. That's what Paul continues to echo right here. In verse 9 through 16, if somebody would want to read that.
But if they cannot contain, let them marry, for it is better to marry than to burn. And unto the married I command, yet not I, but the Lord, let not the wife depart from her husband, but and if she departs, let her remain unmarried, or be reconciled to her husband. And let not the husband put away his wife, but to the rest speak I, not the Lord. If any brother hath a wife that believeth not, and she be pleased to dwell with him, let him not put her away. And the woman which hath a husband that believeth not, and if he be pleased to dwell with her, let her not leave him. For the unbelieving husband is sanctified by the wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband. Else were your children unclean, but now are they holy. But if the unbelieving depart, let him depart. A brother or a sister is not under bondage in such cases. But God hath called us to peace. For what knowest thou, O wife, whether thou shalt save thy husband, or how knowest thou, O man, whether thou shalt save thy wife? But as God hath distributed to every man, as the Lord hath called every one, so let him walk. And so ordain I in all the churches. Is any man called being circumcised? Let him not become uncircumcised. Is any called in uncircumcision? Let him not be circumcised.
Okay, so right there on talking about 9 through 16 here. You're all right. Says a couple scriptures back from that. So what it addresses here, again, specific question. So someone has come and said, okay, I've given my heart to the Lord, but my spouse not interested. Should I just divorce them? And what Paul's advice here to them is no, because you have that great influence, maybe the change in your life is what's going to be the change for them. And I think we've all heard different testimonies and examples of where someone gives their heart to the Lord. Maybe this couple, they were married, they weren't believers, not real believers, and they weren't serving the Lord. And all of a sudden, one of them is. I've seen it over the years. You got the one spouse, the man and the woman, they're in church every single time the doors are open, they're living it out, and the other one just keeps running. And so, in that case, he starts saying, should we just divorce them? If they're not willing to believe, they say, no, live it out in front of them. Now, if they leave you, don't stop them. If they leave you for the cause of Christ, let them go. But if, just keep living it out. Because that is the commitment that you've made. And so I think about the case for Christ, and I've spoken about that before. You guys, the guy that wrote that was an atheist. And his wife got saved, got into church, and he had already proclaimed himself to be an atheist. And she continued to pray for him, to counsel him to see if he didn't want to hear it. So he decided he was a writer. And newspaper writer, I believe, and he decided he was going to prove that this was all fake, that Jesus was not who the Bible said that he was. And he goes out, there's a movie, in fact, I got an office, there's a movie about this, there's a book called Case for Christ. The book was out a long time. And so he actually went to disprove that Jesus existed, that there is a God, and specifically Jesus, and the whole biblical story of Jesus and salvation. And it just didn't make sense to him. And so I believe that's biblical as well, right? It's nonsense to the unbeliever. And so he goes out to prove it. And in his journey, the more he tries to disprove Christ, the more he proves it. And so that's what he builds the case for Christ while trying to prove it fake. And now he's an evangelist. He preaches, he teaches, and he has multiple books. Lee Strobel is his name. Lee Strobel. And I follow him on a lot of different things, and it's awesome. I have read that book, watched the movie, but it's amazing how his wife just holds on. She just faithful in it. Just absolutely faithful in it. And you see that, and that's what he said. Sometimes you do have those unequal yokes, even though it's not advised to do it. And sometimes people are married before they give their heart to the Lord. Often, or something happens, and then one of them gives their heart to the Lord. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. They couldn't get their spouse in. What should we do? He says, stick with it. That's the vows you made. Stick with them. But if they leave you for the case of Christ, let them go. And the next group of scriptures here, verse 17 through 24. This is about the only feel-good, really, of the bunch, maybe. Verse 17 through 24. Somebody would want to read that.
And as God hath distributed to every man, as the Lord hath called everyone, so let him walk as ordained I in all churches. Is any man called me circumcised, let him not become uncircumcised. It is called him uncircumcision, let him not be circumcised. Circumcision is nothing, and uncircumcision is nothing, but the keeping of the commandments of God. That every man abide in the same calling wherein he was called. Art thou called me a servant? Care not for it. But if thou mayest be made free, use it rather. For he that is called in the Lord, being a servant, is the Lord's freedom. Likewise also he that is called, being free, is Christ's servant. You are brought with a price, but not ye the servants of men. Rather let every man wherein he is called, therein abide with God.
Simply said there, come as you are. Come just as you are. And I think that's a problem, and he's kind of teaching and talking against legalism there, really, in that we don't take people and fix them up. That's not what the church is. For us to have somebody worry us as individuals. Again, sometimes this is spiritual vigor that's coming about, and we give our hearts to the Lord, we receive a calling from God, and we don't watch it get heavy. We just start trying to find all the good things we do. How can I be better? And that's what they were doing. They really, and again, some of it got misguided because they started getting into holiness competition. That's really what the church of Corinth did. They started trying to be more holy than the person next to them instead of trying to be like God. And one of the greatest examples I've personally seen that in my lifetime was people seeking particular spiritual gifts, which they've addressed that in here. Well, we'll address that even more so here in a few chapters, chapter 12 of 1 Corinthians. So what they start doing, of course, that still goes on today. It does. Where people, certain, like throwing this word out there very often, certain denominations, certain beliefs, they put certain spiritual gifts above others. And like for whatever reason, even though it's not biblical, they say this spiritual gift it's above the others. It's the most important one. And even I remember even as a teenager and talking to people who were seeking certain spiritual gifts, and I say, well, why do you want that gift? And their answer would be, well, I gave my heart to the Lord. So and so said that's what I should do. Well, how about just tell God you want to be closer to Him and do things to let Him know? How about that? What if we just keep it that simple? And I think that there's a fine line between legalism and us making our own rules, kind of like they were trying to do, and a soft gospel. And I think we have to find that area that says we're seeking God. We are seeking Him in everything He has, but it's a relationship. Come how you are, and don't think that all the dirt's going to fall off of you day one, because that may not be the case. We've seen people give their hearts to the Lord and have a full turn, an absolute full turn. Seemingly they're a different person than that day before. But I don't know about you guys, but sometimes it feels like God gets that chisel out every once in a while. Say, hey, there's something else you can do better. Let me work on that a little bit. Let me work on that. And that's kind of what my thinking. I was praying a while back. I shared with y'all this morning. Where I want to be surrounded by God's glory. I want Him to chisel away those things that aren't of Him. Because those things keep coming back to us. They keep attacking us. Whether it be just our nature. Isn't it amazing? There's certain things that are just our nature. And it's amazing to me, and I probably learned it more through my own son, maybe as much as anything. Our kids for sure, but my son is very, very much like his dad, very much. And he really wasn't around him a ton until he was probably, I don't know, 10 or 12. But even when he was younger, I seen so many things. I knew my father-in-law basically my whole life. And anyway, it was amazing to me how many things that he just born that way, just naturally that way. It's something that on Delia's family farm that's pretty common, and any of us that's worked around there very much, we always kind tell jokes that you can always tell where something broke down in the past because Teddy will have some tools laying there. And no matter how long ago it's been, it's like, oh, I remember this. We worked on the bush hog here 3 years ago. There's the wrench. We could go right there. And it's you find the hard way every once in a while, or the bad way. But that's something about him. And this blue pickup that I've got right now I've been my son's pickup last few years. And a lot of the tools that I had missing, I found them. They were in that pickup, under the seat, in the doors, and all the random things. I think about anything that would work on a stereo, it was in there. And it's stuff like that. And I've often found those same things. Come home in the driveway, there's that socket set wide open, and calling for rain. And those kind of things like that. It's amazing. In nature, of course, most of that stuff we just laugh about. It's very similar. And I can go on for a lot of that stuff. They're the guys that if you set the buildings on fire, you wouldn't know it by their demeanor because they're going to walk the same speed. Even something funny about Delia's dad when he gets nervous or he's thinking real hard, he does a whistle of no tune. My son's done that since he was 5. And I was just like, how could something like that, the first time he done it, the first time I noticed it, and I remember he whistles like your dad. You get thinking whistling like your dad. So we have all these things that are just completely natural, right? That we don't have to learn. Good and bad. Some of them are funny, some of you are probably naturally very organized. And some of us are not. It's some of us are very messy. It really takes a great effort to have any kind of organization. Some of us are on time or early almost always. And some of us, we know it's time to start church when you get here. And don't be jabbing anybody. I always call those people our church bells. When they walk in the door, either it's time to start or a little late. So they're our church bells. As a matter of fact, one of the guys that used to be that way, his last name was Bell, Chuck Bell. I really call him Church Bell. But anyways, we have all these things. And we can get discouraged real easily if we come to the Lord, we're growing in the Lord, and then we start looking around like, where do I need to get better? I'll be honest, I don't think that's our job. I really don't. We got to line our lives with the Word of God, study the Word of God. Okay, that's enough. That's about all that within our grasp. Other than that, when it starts getting into the real spiritual growth, outside of studying the Word of God, gathering together, giving the Lord everything that you have, and building a relationship with Him, He's the one that's going to start moving us around and taking those things off of us, putting those callings on our heart, and then it will come to be. Sister Judy gave us been hanging with me all week. Her testimony last Sunday night. Those were awesome words. Testimony of God, how God has brought us together, what He's doing. But understand this: there wasn't one thing that anybody did other than just be obedient to God's will to bring us where we are right now. It wasn't because somebody drew it up, because it wouldn't work like this. None of us would have drew it up like this, right? There's too many reasons not to. Too many things, too many cookie cutters that didn't fit. But God, He does things His way, which is better and above our ways. So that's what He's saying. Quit looking at how to fix yourself. If you could have fixed yourself, you wouldn't need God. You could do it without Him, you wouldn't need Him. But we can't. We're born into this world, and we're born with all of our battles and struggles. And I was talking to you this morning about that. And last night at the FCA event at the high school, we were kind of talking about this topic as well. That your struggles, the hardships, the battles, maybe the very things that tempt us. We're all tempted in different ways by different things. And with that being in mind, sharing those one another, that's called being the church. Whether that be sharing in the struggle or just sharing the real testimonies and saying, hey, I've struggled with this, or I am struggling with this. We ought to be able to do that and still lift each other up and say, this is where I am. People, I'll be able to walk in the door. So this is what I'm struggling with. Not do like the church of Corinth sometimes. Well, we like you. We want you here, so we're going to say it's all okay. We agree with all of it. No. But loving them and guide them with the Word of God, preaching and teaching the real Word of God when it feels good and when it don't. And that's who we have to be. People have to come as we are. And I think right now we're doing a great job of that. We need to keep doing that. Keep supporting people. Keep loving on people. Keep understanding. Because everybody walks in with all different backgrounds, fighting all different battles. And I seen a quote recently. I think I shared it. I can't remember how exactly it went. Let me see if I noted it here. But it said something to the effect of, you know who's really struggling right now? And I think it said everyone. You know who's going through a lot right now? Literally everyone. Be kind to people. And that's true. You know, there's so many people going through so many things. And the worst of it, we probably don't have any clue. Because the biggest part of people are putting on the front. And that's here and everywhere else. And so we have to be kind, we have to pray, we have to believe, we have to keep praising God that we get to come as we are. And that's what he's saying. Quit trying to fix yourself. So to me, that's a great one there. So verses 25 through 31, Paul gets into a little more his preference and what not to do. Anybody wants to read those verses there?
Now concerning virgins, I have no commandment of the Lord, yet I give my judgment as one that hath obtained mercy of the Lord to be faithful. I suppose therefore that this is good for the present distress. I say that it is good for a man so to be. Art thou bond unto a wife? Seek not to be loosed. Art thou loosed from a wife? Seek not a wife. And if thou marry, thou hast not sinned. And if a virgin marry, she hath not sinned. Nevertheless, such shall have trouble in the flesh, but I spare you. But this I say, brethren, the time is short. It remaineth that both they that have wives be as though they had none, and they that weep as though they wept not, and they that rejoice as though they rejoiced not, and they that buy as though they possessed not, and they that use this world as not abusing it, for the fashion of this world passeth away.
So again, Paul is coming in. He's telling he prefers just to be alone, not have that relationship. Because if he did, that would take some priority difference in his life. And so to him, he does not have that thing. But if you're going to be married, if you're going to have that relationship, just remember about that and everything else in life. God comes first. Time is short. And then with those temporary things that he goes on through, he said, don't stress over those things. We stress and worry over these temporary things. And then the eternal, we lose sight of it. And we let go. So although he has his preference of how he lives his life, he's not saying you should. That's what works for him. That's what he prefers. Doesn't work for you? Get married. But in that, don't hold on to all these temporary things. Don't put them above God. And if those things, if you're living differently in your relationship with God because you had these other things, you shouldn't have them. And so that's something that, and I think to kind of expand on that a little bit, a true godly relationship won't pull you away from God in your calling. It will grow you in it. And I've noticed how many weddings that I've done now, and that's something that I always make a point to say. Whether that couple, typically, obviously I know them well, and whether they're going to church actively or not, most of them that I do are, but put God in the center of that marriage. Put God in the center of that. And if you do that, you're going to be okay. If you really do that, two people take God right in the center of that, and that's the basic. That's the very basis in what you're leaning on. You don't have to lean on something. And if God's in the center, even if you fall, He's going to catch you. And it's going to push you to a stronger point. But what He's talking about there is if that relationship, any relationship, pulls you away from God, weakens your relationship, or any of these temporary things. And that's the thing I always say about hobbies and other things we get involved in. It's great to have those things. You know, that we can have great, good fellowship. And I think a place that the church at times has fell short is if the perception, and boy, the enemy loves this, love the perception of the church to be that we come in and that we try to speak eloquently and we try to appear to be perfect and we study the Word of God and we clap and we sing a few songs and we are not allowed to have any fun and this is our absolute, you know, we praise God and we worship God. We do it the most boring, cold way we possibly can. But that's not the case at all. And sometimes I think, although I know we have some of those ministers this day and age, they're preaching prosperity and those kind of things. Everybody has their own opinion on that. And I know we go that way, and I'm not talking about a softer gospel. But to preach and to believe and to walk in the thinking that we can't enjoy His presence and His people and His fellowship, and that we can't grow through that is shameful. It's wasteful. It's to think that this life is supposed to be absolutely miserable and us just trudge through and that there's no good that comes from relationship with God. There should be a peace and a joy that is now, and then it gets better. That's what it should be. That faith and that relationship with Christ, we should be more of these than many people in the world. Christians ought to be able to smile and laugh and enjoy each other and have more fun and have more in common than anybody else. So if we're the most uptight, stressed, worrying about every little thing and perceptions and all that instead of just seeking more of God, it's a simple gospel that we complicate. And all Paul's saying there, and yeah, I'd say he's a little frustrated at this church. He definitely is. And they're probably asking him some questions that might even seem silly to him. But what he's telling us is this: put God first. And if anything's getting in the way of that, just let it go. If anything is even if you're having a struggle with God and whatever, just let that thing go. Because what's it worth to gain the whole world and lose your own soul? That's what he's saying there. Is no matter who it is, even if that is a spouse, don't allow that to push you away from God. You can't do it. You're supposed to put them before you, not before God. And so that's something that we have to be mindful of. And I think, other things in life, whether it be our hobbies or our preferences and those kind of things, we can easily let those things separate us as well. We have to be in check about that. Something we have to pray. It's a bold prayer. To say, God, if there's anything in my life that you don't want to be there, get it out. If there's any part of me that you don't like, Lord, change it. Make it evident to me. There's things I need to do different, but understand this, when we pray those prayers, we kind of be like the rich man that comes to Jesus and says, I've done all these things. What would you have me do? He said, get rid of your wealth. See how you like that? So he prayed, spoke to Jesus, and he answered it. So just be willing and be real. I know this. I had a youth talk with this last week, and they said they'd given their hearts to the Lord some time ago, and they really, essentially, they weren't all in. But now they're all in. Now they're really all in. And I told them, I said, God knows that too. God knows when you say things because you should. And when you say things because you really mean them and you feel them. And sometimes the prayers, God changed my heart. I know I shouldn't feel this way. I don't want to feel this way. I feel this way. Sometimes we have grudges, hurts, scars and stuff, and it's hard to let it go. And so what we do is we try to say, God, I want to live with you. Yeah, but you're carrying around this boulder with you. And so you got to say, God, take this away. I can't let it go. I can't get up. God showed me how to get rid of this. I'd love for you to just take it and me not feel it anymore. But maybe there's some process to it. Maybe there's some reason. And you got to feel kind of like Paul winds up saying that when you pray and you still have this, maybe I just need it. You pray sincerely. But there's a difference in praying sincerely and praying and holding on to it. Because we do that sometimes too. But when we talk to God, get those temporary things in proper order. I think this finishes out. Yeah, this finishes out the text here, verses 32 through 40. Anybody want to read that?
But I would have you without carefulness. He that is unmarried careth for the things that belong to the Lord, how he may please the Lord. But he that is married careth for the things that are of the world, how he may please his wife. There is a difference also between a wife and a virgin. The unmarried woman careth for the things of the Lord, that she may be holy both in body and in spirit. But she that is married careth for the things of the world, how she may please her husband. And this I speak for your own profit, not that I cast a snare upon you, but for that which is comely, and that you may attend upon the Lord without distraction. But if any man think that he behaveth himself uncomely toward his virgin, if she pass the flower of her age, and need so require, let him do what he will. He sinneth not, let them marry. Nevertheless, he that standeth steadfast in his heart, having no necessity, but hath power over his own will, and he hath so decreed in his heart that he will keep his virgin, doeth well. So then he that giveth her in marriage doth well, but he that giveth her not in marriage doeth better. The wife is bound by the law as long as her husband liveth, but if her husband be dead, she is at a liberty to be married to whom she will, only in the Lord. But she is happier if she so abide after my judgment, and I think also that I may have the Spirit of God.
So a couple things it talks about there is obviously biblical marriage relationships, where marriage stands in that, whether to marry or not, and to marry for the right reasons. But it also speaks of this, what I already kind of touched on a bit earlier. Make sure that if you're married, you're still prepared to put God above that spouse. Because, and that's what he's talking about there. He's like, if he was married, that would take away. Because he would want to do for her and her for him when he could be doing for God. Now, what your prayer needs to be, and your life needs to be, is how does that union work together to strengthen the calling and the ministry, whatever that is. And sometimes that's challenging. And I think it's kind of funny as I've kind of got to know some couples here. I know you're very much like this. It's pretty amazing. I know Billy and I are almost as opposite as two people can be in personality. And I would say that probably in gifts as well. Obviously she's quite a bit more shy than I am. She's not somebody, something that's very interesting early on for us in our marriage. We walk into a room full of people. I want to talk to everybody. Like that's one of my favorite things to do. Like if we go someplace we don't know anybody, I love it. I love talking to strangers. I just walked around today. We went and ate dinner. I walked through the restaurant to the bathroom. It took me 15 minutes to get back. I come sit down. And I said, "Where'd you go?" I said, "I see a couple people I know." And she said, "You probably talk to people you didn't know too." Met some new friends you walk through there, And so she's probably going to put her head down and go and not see anybody. She's more on the backward side. But something that I've come to know over time, the way God has brought us together, her weaknesses and her strengths, they fit with mine. So where I may be weak in a spot, she brings the strength to that area. Where she may be weak in a spot, I bring the strength to that area. And so often, especially in ministry, we do totally opposite things. The way that we go about things and the way that we meet needs. And so often her voice and the way that God speaks to her, I can tell you there's been many, many times when God's been speaking something to me, I've been praying about something, and he speaks it right through her as well. God's telling me this. He's been telling me that too. So I thought, there's another one. She's pretty good about talking it out. Funny enough, much as I like to talk, I don't like talking about my feelings very much. I'm probably the only guy like that. So I know most of you really enjoy those good Philly talks, right? We learn all the fishy stuff, and the best time to do it is just right before your first snore. The best time to talk about it. Okay, I won't go into that very much. Seems like I'm not the only one that's had this conversation. But the undivided priority, meaning this. It's okay to have those relationships. It's okay to have those things. But not if it's taking pieces of the relationship with God. Not if it's taken away from what God's going to do. It still has to be first. Has to be number one. And anybody have anything else out of that chapter? That's kind of one of them that's got a few awkward feels in it as you go along. But it is very important. I'm going to share something else with you before we close. Sounds like the ladies are still talking downstairs. You see this? All right. Yeah. So this is a work in great progress. So this spot, if you look, I'm going to, well, that didn't help us. This blue app looks like it's got a flower on it. So I just downloaded this tonight. But I downloaded it on my phone a couple days ago, and now it looks a little different. But this symbol right here,